Computer game promising to leap right off your monitor. The creative forces behind LucasArts Entertainment Company say the visual effects in the latest game, called Full Throttle, is one of the best examples of where video games are going. And this Night Beat Extra News Center 4's Lindy E. gives us a preview and reports on what's in store in multimedia.
Alright, hello everyone. Welcome back to Season 1 of Drink the Video Games. I am Brian, and we are going to be carrying on with our point-and-click adventure games by LucasArts. Today we're talking about a game from 1995, released by LucasArts Games and designed by Tim Schafer. It was re-released by Tim Schafer's game studio Double Fine Productions in 2017. Today we're talking about Full Throttle.
Whenever I smell asphalt, I think of marine. That's the last sensation I had before I blacked out. The thick smell of asphalt. And the first thing I saw when I woke up was her face. She said she'd fix my bike. Free. No strings attached. I should have known then that things are never that simple. Yeah, when I think of marine, I think of two things. Asphalt and trouble.
Alright, now in the game, Full Throttle, you are playing the part of Ben Throttle, voiced by Roy Conrad, a biker and leader of the Polecats. You get recruited by Malcolm Corley of Corley Motors, voiced by Hamilton Camp, to escort Malcolm and his vice president Adrian Ripburger, voiced by Mark Hamill, to the annual shareholder meeting. Along the way, though, Ripburger is going to decide he's ready for promotion, taking out poor Malcolm Corley and framing Ben for murder, so it's up to us, in classic point-and-click adventure style, to clear our name and help Corley Motors be passed down to its rightful heir.
All right, Tim, this is Full Throttle, a game you designed, and first of all, just let's talk about the game. What do you do in Full Throttle? What kind of game is it?
You play a biker named Ben, and you take on his personality, and it's a graphic adventure where he's on the run for a crime he didn't commit, and the law's chasing him, and a murder happens, and the real killer is trying to find him, and there's a road trip,
So it's role-playing, adventure, that kind of game?
And solving puzzles. And
now, after publishing several point-and-click adventure games, LucasArts was seeing a downturn in the genre. The previous entry, Day of the Tentacle, sold well enough, but the Monkey Island series that came before was commercially unsuccessful despite its high praise from both critics and players alike. LucasArts tagged Schafer and Dave Grossman, who had worked together on Day of the Tentacle, to pitch third installments in both of those series. However, Tim Schafer wanted to go it alone and made 5 pitches, including a Day of the Dead pitch, which would go on to become Grim Fandango, that we'll be talking about later, and what would become Full Throttle.
The most traditional product in LucasArts' new lineup is Full Throttle, but don't let that fool you into thinking it's not worth a second look. True, it's a side-view, third-person perspective graphic adventure like Sam & Max and Day of the Tentacle. It's also true that there are puzzles involving finding the right object to use in the right place, much as you will find in any other adventure game. But there, the similarity ends. It's a dark and dangerous future. The government has collapsed, leaving justice to be meted out by those strong enough to enforce their will. Rival biker gangs prowl the highways. Malcolm Corley, the owner of Corley Motors, the last manufacturer of the motorcycles that sustain these gangs' way of life, has been murdered. You control Ben Throttle, who's been framed for the crime. The object of Full Throttle is to keep Ben out of the hands of the police long enough to gather the evidence he needs to prove his innocence. Full Throttle will be the most cinematic adventure game LucasArts has yet attempted. It will feature numerous varying camera angles and full digitized speech. The CD-ROM-only release is currently scheduled for the end of '94/beginning of '95.
So the pitches had been made, and per an article in Edge magazine, Tim Schafer said that he assured LucasArts that the game would be a hit. So with assurance like that, let's go. Full Throttle is ready to fire up the ignition and head out into the world. But before we head out into the world to talk about how Full Throttle came to be, we better take a quick break and mix up a cocktail that is worthy of the Polecats. So joining me is going to be Michaela from Drink the Movies to whip up a cocktail that I think you might find at the kickstand. So sit back, relax, and we'll be right back with our Full Throttle cocktail.
You better stay out here, Rip. This place is bikers only.
All right, so joining me at the kickstand bar is Michaela from Drink the Movies. So Michaela, welcome to our first game deep dive here on season one of Drink the Video Games. How are you doing today?
I'm awesome. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, welcome into the kickstand. This is the biker bar, right? Bikers only. But I think that you are a biker at heart, or maybe you're a vice president, like Adrian Ripburger. So, Adrian Ripburger is voiced by Mark Hamill, none other than, and he's a really good villain in the game. Of course, he'd started doing the voice for the Joker. Very famously in 1992, so just a couple of years before this. So he was all geared up to do more villain work. And, Ripburger is going to be the bad guy here in this. But we're at the kickstand. It's a biker bar. So I'm thinking about what kind of cocktail should we do? And what do you think of when you think of like bikers? You think of Jack Daniels, right?
Oh yeah, totally. Jack Daniels and leather. Yeah.
Jack Jack Daniels and leather. Absolutely, absolutely. So what I thought we would do for our cocktail portion here of Full Throttle is we would do a Jack Daniels old fashioned because you have Ben there. He's your character. He's the biker. You see him sitting in the bar in like the very first scene of the game, swigging on a glass of whiskey. He's probably having his Jack Daniels straight. Malcolm Corley comes in to chat with him. Right, the Polecats is the name of the biker gang there, and Malcolm Corley might go with something a little bit more refined, right? So, he's a biker at heart, but he's older. He's been wise to the world. He's running a successful business, so maybe he's going to do a Jack Daniel's Old Fashioned, which is what I'm going to be having. But Adrian Ripburger, he's a vice president. He's looking to make moves. He is a high earner. He wants something a little bit more fancy, and that's going to be more of the single barrel variety, which is what I think you're coming up with today. So, Michaela, let's talk about the Jack Daniel's Old Fashioned and how we put those together. So, I'm going to let you start, right? Ripburger here. He's coming in. He needs a drink for the road. What's he going to have? A very fancy Jack Daniel's Old Fashioned. So, go ahead and make one up, Michaela.
That's right. So into a shaker tin, you're going to take 2 ounces of your Jack Daniels. Now, this is for a VP, right? Vice president. So it needs to be a little special. We're going to do a single barrel rye. That was made special for us by Southern Spirits, which is a local liquor store that's hanging out in the Carolinas. So if you can, go pick yourself up some of that because it's amazing. But you're going to take 2 ounces of that and you're going to put that in a shaker tin with ice with half an ounce of simple syrup. For those of you that don't know what simple syrup is, it is equal parts sugar and water, and you can just heat it up until the sugar melts. It doesn't need to be boiling. You don't want to burn it. And then you can put it away for any time you want a cocktail. And that's what it is. So you're going to take half an ounce of that, and you're going to shake that, add 2 dashes of bitters. You can use any aromatic bitters you want. I used a really fun, like gold aromatic bitters that I had by Strong Water. Really lovely stuff, but 2 dashes will be plenty. And then you're going to garnish that. You're going to pour it into a rocks glass with like 1 ice cube because this is an old fashioned and we're trying to be real fancy. And then you're going to express an orange on top. Add that to the side with a cherry. And I had an Amarino cherry, so it was like very delicious and unctuous. It's really beautiful. It's really good. It's really full of Jack Daniels. I mean, where can we go wrong here?
Where can you go wrong there? That's right. I got Tennessee sour mash whiskey. That's the only way to go. I like that. I like the rye inclusion there. It's going to give you a little bit more burn there in the single barrel. Very, very nice. Very, very nice. That's for you high rollers out there. But for the rest of us at the kickstand, we just want to go with a straight up Jack Daniel's Old Fashioned. So let's do that. We're going to use the same ingredients here, except we're just going to go with the straight up old number 7, the black label Jack Daniels. That's the classic one. So into your glass, you're going to go up ahead and, we're at a dive bar, Michaela. We don't have big fancy ice cubes at the dive bar. So let's go ahead. We'll just put in a couple of ice cubes, throw in 2 ounces of Jack Daniels, a half ounce of simple syrup, or you could just use some sugar in there. I don't know if your dive bar has simple syrup, half ounce of that, 2 dashes of your bitters. And then you're going to go with an orange peel and definitely one of those cheap maraschino cherries. That's what they serve at the kickstand. Well, that's what I'm having in mind. Give that a stir with that ice, and you're going to sip and enjoy. I thought about originally just doing like a Jack and Coke, but I'm like, nah, like the Jack Old Fashioned. That seems good because you got people in suits there mingling with the polecats, the biker gang. So I think the Jack Old Fashioned is something fun you can play around with a bunch of different ways. And I really like the Jack Daniels in this, Michaela, because it's the sour mash. It's the Tennessee whiskey, so it's different than a bourbon, right? It has kind of these different sort of, aromatic notes on the nose. It has a little bit different finish than that, tried and true, like bourbon, like burn. So I think it's different and it's fun. And then Jack Daniels is really a great bottle to have on hand as you play through Full Throttle. What'd you think about our old fashioned here?
I thought it was tasty. Look, I just started really the last couple of years getting into whiskey and bourbon in general. So Jack Daniels was the thing that I always just had with Coke, and that was very few and far between drinks. This is lovely. The kind of orange cherry kind of sweetness goes really nicely against the rye. If you like rye, I suggest it. But yeah, you by no means need to do this with a really fancy bottle of Jack. You can do it with your number 7, and it would probably be more reminiscent of what's happening at the kickstand anyway. But yeah, this is a good one. You should try it. It's really easy to make if you have simple syrup on hand, which, if you drink a lot, it's not a bad idea.
Absolutely. So that is the Jack Daniels Old Fashioned. And I think that's going to wrap it up here for the cocktail portion, Michaela, because we have to go. We have to be on our way to escort these guys to the shareholders meeting. So thank you so much for joining us in the kickstand. Michaela, thank you for joining me here on the cocktail portion. And let's get back. Let's talk a little bit about the creation of Full Throttle.
You.
Yes.
Who are you?
I'm Tim Schafer.
And I'm Peter Chan.
We're doing Full Throttle, the biker game. I wanted to do a game about sort of Hell's Angels type bikers and a gang, and Peter and some of the other artists thought it might be more interesting if it was a little more futuristic and the bikes were more high tech, and so we designed all these really weird looking bikes for different gangs. These are the Rottweilers.
Souped up Harley.
That is cool.
See?
That's not Ben.
No, but that's not Ben.
That's not Ben.
But look at all the pipes.
He's big, and he's bad, and he's mean.
Ben.
And you get to control him most of the time. And walk him around. And intimidate people. But he's a nice guy. He's a good guy. He's been wronged by society. He's on the run for a crime he didn't commit. Much like Grizzly Adams. We got someone who has a Harley, like an unmuffled Harley. We recorded some of that sound, and then lowered it down and put in mixed it with the sound of a lion roaring and a bunch of bees in a jar slowed down really low, so it's like.
All right, now that we have our cocktail made, thank you, Michaela from Drink the Movies, for helping me out with that one. Let's talk about how the game was made. So Full Throttle would mark the 11th adventure game by LucasArts, and it would utilize a newly created Insane animation engine to help bring it to life. Insane stands for Interactive Streaming Animation Engine. The Insane engine was developed for Rebel Assault, but was largely enhanced for Rebel Assault 2. Now, the Insane engine was pretty awesome, and if you've played Rebel Assault 2, you know how awesome it was. But it wasn't a perfect fit for Full Throttle. Insane was designed with photorealism in mind, and Full Throttle was envisioned by lead artist Peter Chan and lead animator Larry Ahern to have a more cartoonish element, meaning that the rendered environment had to be scaled down, which is how you get the game's aesthetic of those crisp character models on top of fuzzier environments. Now, in issue 8 of LucasArts' The Adventurer magazine, Peter Chan cites comic book artists Nicholas DeCracy and Mike Mignola as inspirations for this art style. So with all of this artwork and pushing the scum and insane engines to the max, this game would be going between 3D and 2D environments, animations, and fully 3D rendered scenes.
It's a movie plot trapped in a computer game. A biker named Ben is framed for murder, and you, the player, help him prove his innocence while staying one step ahead of the law. The game's creators say 3D movie quality design lets the player step right into the game. Randy Komisar is president and CEO of LucasArts Entertainment, one of 3 Lucas companies famous for visual effects in movies.
First of all, it's very, very cinematic in the sense that it uses a lot of close-ups and it uses a lot of scenes to set up the activities that you have to go through in order to solve the puzzles and win the game.
A team of 20 people spent a year creating this game.
So Tim Schafer has this concept of bringing a more realistic, slightly more grounded, albeit fantastical, world to life. Peter Chan and Larry Ahern have created this world, and the Insane engine has brought it to life, creating a video game that looks and feels like a cinematic experience more than maybe any other game had ever accomplished up to that point. But to round this out, we're going to need music.
For Full Throttle, we decided that we wanted to have live rock and roll, and that meant we had to find a band. We looked a lot of places, for one, including some major labels, We finally found this band called the Gone Jackals. They're local. They all ride bikes. They're just perfect for the part. They live the life, and it shows in their music.
In an interview with artofthetitle.com, as well as the commentary track on the remaster, Tim Schafer said that he wanted to use real-life rock and roll music in the game, and even had a meeting with A&M Records about licensing some music, Soundgarden and the song Kickstand, to be exact. But licensing music didn't make monetary sense for A&M. They wanted paid. LucasArts didn't want to pay, so there you go. But luckily enough, Keith Karloff of the local band The Gone Jackals would roll up on his Harley and drop off a demo.
As CNET Central continues, head out on that highway looking for an interactive adventure. Very often reviews interactive games that say they're just like a movie. But there's a little problem with that. Soundtracks and motion pictures are really, really good if they go unnoticed. They're so tied into the storyline. The problem with many video games is that the music is not only bad, it's annoying. That's why we think a new game called Full Throttle is important. It uses a new technology that really does make at least the music like a movie. Everybody's in leathers tonight because it's a wrap party to celebrate the completion of a movie, actually an interactive movie. It's about biker bars and about metal bands, and what they feel is the next generation of interactive adventure. It's called Full Throttle, and it looks more like a movie than a computer game. It's actually an interactive feature animation, available on CD-ROM from the folks over at LucasArts, George Lucas's software company. The company is transferring movie-making techniques from the silver screen to the computer screen, creating a computer game that is truly a cinematic experience.
Full Throttle would be released on May the 19th, 1995 for PC CD-ROM and was an instant success for LucasArts. Producing the game on a budget of $1.5 million, LucasArts was hoping to sell 100,000 copies. However, Full Throttle would become the first LucasArts adventure game to sell over 1 million copies. Congratulations, Full Throttle, you're a hit.
In this game, we find out that Ben has uncovered a sinister plot to tear up the roads of the wasteland. He's got to use his fists and his wits in order to get to the bottom of things. We've updated it, brought it to a full 3D world. Ben is back, and he is badder than ever.
So with Full Throttle breaking sales records, a sequel was of course planned, and they even got pretty far into development. In spring of 2000, Full Throttle 2 went into production. Larry Ahern was designed to lead the project, and Bill Tiller was slated to be the game's art director. According to Tiller, about 40% of the pre-production art was completed when the game was canceled in November of 2000. Ben Throttle would get another chance at some action with Full Throttle Hell on Wheels in 2003.
I can't help thinking this is always where my troubles begin. It looks so simple. Help out a pretty dame, kick some tail, and leave town. But it never ends up that way. Things get real complicated, real fast.
Led by Sean Clark, the game was announced and even shown off at the 2003 E3 Expo, but the graphics were lackluster, Tim Schafer wasn't going to be involved, and unfortunately, Roy Conrad had passed away in 2002. It looks like Ben Throttle was never going to get another adventure.
Remastered will have updated graphics and sound and developer commentary and multiple control options. All the awesome remastered features you've come to expect, plus a complete unaltered original, and is in there too. It's one of our biggest announcements since...
One of the fun things about the remasters is the reunion of the team. Like, we had the team come down and do the commentary. It's like a lot of people I haven't seen in years, and so it's fun to get together and share the stories. Everybody remembers different stories than I do.
But if Ben can't get another adventure, let's gussy up the adventure that he already had. So we get a remake, released on April 18th, 2017, and produced by Double Fine Productions, headed by Tim Schafer, the head of the original game. Now, the remake was first showcased at the 2017 Game Developers Conference and featured swappable gameplay between the original graphics and the remastered graphics, game developer commentary, and concept art. It would later be ported to the Xbox in 2020. And if you were lucky enough, Limited Run Games released a physical version of the game and a collector's edition back in 2024 that featured some patches, some concept art, a poster, a bandana, everything you need to have your own adventure. Now, as for me and my memories of this game, I remember it very, very well. This came out in 1995. So I was 13 years old when this came out. And I remember being a kid and picking up a copy of some sort of game magazine. I think it was PC Gamer, probably, and seeing like a full 2-page spread advertisement for this game. It looked amazing. It featured the voice of Mark Hamill. It looked like such a fun time to go and check out. I loved point-and-click adventure games, and this game looked awesome. But I was a kid. How was I going to get this? So I ended up having to mow lawns for a couple of weeks because games were still really expensive back then. I think I had to mow the lawn for, over the course of 6 weeks to save up enough money to get this game. And I went out and bought it and fell in love with the story so much, even back as a youngster. I played through this game a bunch of times, going off with Ben Throttle, learning the ways of this biker gang, the Polecats, and just fell in love with it. So when the game was re-released, I was really excited to go back to that world. It was like an instant purchase for me on the PlayStation. I got it, I played through it, listening through the commentary, reliving those adventures, and having a great time. So it was really important to me to feature this game first, because this was the first sort of kind of ignition point, I guess, for my love of point-and-click adventure games, specifically the LucasArts adventure games. So thank you so much for joining me here on, our first episode, I guess, or our first game of Season 1 of Drink the Video Games here. We're talking about the LucasArts point-and-click adventure games. So let me know, listeners out there, what you think about Full Throttle. Did you play it back in 1995 when it released? Did you play the remastered version in 2017 when it came out? And did you mix up a Jack Daniel's Old Fashioned to have while you were reliving this adventure with me? Let me know all of those things. You can find me on Instagram. It's at Drink the Video Games. Send me a picture of you playing the game, or send me, a picture of your favorite character from the game, or the cocktail that you made to go along with it. That's a great place to follow along, see what games we're getting up to, see what's coming next on the podcast, all of that stuff. Speaking of the podcast, you can like and subscribe on any of the podcast platforms out there. Reviews go a long way in getting more Drink the Video Games goodness out there for everyone. And if you want a video version of the podcast, you can find that on our YouTube channel. And the YouTube channel is where you're going to want to go, because in addition to the podcast episodes, also going to be doing a playthrough of Full Throttle and all the games that we talk about here over the course of Drink the Video Games. So make sure you go there and check that out. All the links to all of those places are down below in the show description. That's going to wrap it up for our first point-and-click adventure game from LucasArts, Full Throttle. Thank you so much for joining me, going back on a trip down memory lane and checking out this adventure. Cheers, thanks for joining me, and we'll talk to you soon.